Welcome back to Carneades.org. Today we're going to be continuing with our series, Dumbfounding Definitions, Dizzying Distinctions, and Diabolical Doctrines, a series sorting through some of the jargon of philosophy. In this video, we're going to be answering the question, what is experimental philosophy? Now, experimental philosophy is one of the newest areas of philosophy, and it's only really come into popularity in the last 10 years. This branch seeks to use empirical research to learn more about the intuitions of regular people, and either justify or make seem unjustified particular intuitions or beliefs. Unlike most fields of philosophy, experimental philosophy does not engage in quote-unquote armchair philosophy, someone sitting and thinking and writing out a treatise or an argument based on what they think or believe, but rather goes into the world to survey the opinions and intuitions of real people. In this video, we will briefly explain the four major projects of experimental philosophy, that's psychology, verification, sources, and variation. Now, the psychology project in experimental philosophy seeks to ascertain the ways in which everyday people think. Effectively, it takes various philosophical positions, particularly those which existed before philosophy, or rather psychology, came to be, and about the way the mind or rationality work, and it attempts to test those theories using the methods of modern psychology, because clearly those theories, having come to be before modern psychology existed, couldn't have been tested using those methods, but they still might be valid or justified by those methods. So basically we're taking old theories about mind, philosophy of mind, rationality, and using our modern methods of psychology to test them out. Verification project, on the other hand, looks more into kind of the justification for beliefs and general opinions on what people believe. So many philosophers disagree as to whether particular propositions which make or break arguments are intuitive. However, there's a sense that some philosophers may simply defend a strange intuition simply because they need it for their position to remain coherent. And frequently, a lot of arguments boil down to a debate over a controversial intuition that proponents of the argument have and opponents of the argument don't have. And when that intuition seems very contradictory or problematic, but the proponents of that position still accept it, it's often called biting the bullet, because at the end of the day, you can stand firm and affirm that intuition, even if a lot of people don't, and still at least remain consistent within your own position. The verification project intends to discover which propositions or positions normal people actually find intuitive before they've been exposed to philosophical argument or theory, so that then we can take that questionable proposition or intuition, see how many people actually support it. If effectively none do, it's obvious to most people that, well, that proposition or idea is counterintuitive. It's not something that you can base a philosophy on, or at least it's a really, really big bullet to bite. The Sources project attempts to determine how intuitions arise, with the goal perhaps of being able to validate the warrant of some intuitions which arise through appropriate means, or invalidate the warrant of intuitions which arise through inappropriate means. So, similar to the last process, we're looking at whether or not a particular intuition is justified in some way, but whereas the last process looked at whether or not generally people agree with a particular intuition, the Sources project more focuses on the process in which they came to have that intuition, either through their reasoning or through their neurobiological functions. So this frequently focuses on moral questions and has been done using fMRIs to distinguish between neurological processes which give rise to particular intuitions over others, and attempts to basically say, well, look, this process here, when the brain does this, you're formulating a warranted intuition, but if the brain does this, you're formulating an unwarranted intuition because that process is based on biases, whereas the first process is based on rationality. And finally, there's a question as to the reliability of intuitions which seem to vary by culture and context. The Variation Project researches such cross-cultural and context-dependent variation of intuitions with the hope that proof some intuitions are not universal, or some may change based on the context they're presented in, will undermine our justification for using intuitions in the first place, or at the very least for using those intuitions which one culture might find very intuitive but another culture might find completely counterintuitive. What do you think of experimental philosophy? Is it a useful field of discovery for philosophy? Is it even philosophy at all, or has it become a type of science? Offer your responses in the comments below. Watch this video and more here at Carneades.org, and stay tuned for a very cool video coming up at the end of April. Stay skeptical, everybody.